All right, so when I read section 2, I know I'm going to look for what positive checks do, and then for examples, and then what preventative checks do, and for examples. Section 2. Malthus said that there are two general checks that limited population growth: positive checks and preventative checks. Preventative checks are population control measures that reduce the birth rate. Malthus claimed that moral restraint needed to be practiced to reduce population growth. By a moral restraint, he meant that delayed marriage and sexual abstinence for adults. I'm going to highlight the term moral restraint and then highlight delayed marriage and sexual abstinence until they were able to economically care for their children. That means that people would practice abstinence and not have sex in order to prevent having children before they were economically able to, or able to financially support for their kids. While it's generally supposed that Malthus was in favor of contraception, like birth control, in fact, as an Anglican minister, he disapproved of it. Seems kind of like he contradicts what people would have thought based on what he's saying. Even then, contraception wasn't widely available. Remember, this is like in the beginning of the 1800s or very late 1700s. However, Malthus believed that the lower classes were incapable of practicing moral restraint. He believed that natural forces would correct the imbalance between food supply and population growth in the form of natural disasters, such as floods and earthquakes, and human-made actions, such as wars and famines. These natural forces were called positive checks. Positive checks are population measures that increase the death rate. So these are things that would cause more deaths and control the population from growing too much or too rapidly by things like floods, earthquakes, wars, and famines. So I'm going to highlight that there. So if positive checks were unsuccessful, then inevitably famine, widespread hunger, right, would be the resulting way of keeping the population down, because this famine would cause a lot of death. So here, what do positive checks do? Well, if I look back at that last paragraph, positive checks help limit population growth by increasing the death rate. Examples of positive checks: natural disasters such as, and human-made actions such as. Right, then it asks me preventative checks. What are preventative checks? What do they do? Well, preventative checks help limit population growth by reducing the birth rate, right? Preventing more people from being born. What are some examples? Birth control, abstinence. What else? Okay. Oh, and then I forgot here. You're going to explain one way in which positive checks and preventative checks are similar. Explain one way in which positive and preventative checks are different. Right. So after you do this, we're going to go to part 3.